So this is actually just like a flat sticker, but it's got the bottom. And just because those two things are so crazy, it actually makes sense. Because in the Bible, there's generational cursings, so it skips every other. So the double entendre, once again, with the validity. Rapping on the block, thought I might as well make it pop. So anyways, when there's sound effects that are different, these are representations of like when Peter Pan was saying you need to clap your hands in order to make the fairy come back to life. That's a double entendre because fairies aren't real, but doing that, it like defines things that aren't even inevitable yet. So like if you're talking to a whole bunch of graves and saying like, I'm going to avenge you, just because like you're living in the town that they were buried in, perhaps that they chose to be buried there because someone would say that. This is logical, but you shouldn't do it. It's logical, but you shouldn't do it. It's like, I was so excited to have donuts at Dunkin' Donuts because I almost never see them. But then I just realized that donuts have eggs in them. And oh no, now the worker has to go looking for her her manager's phone number in order to see if the donuts really do have eggs in them. And it should be as easy as just looking at something like this, like a monolith. That is definitely a monolith. The only reason you can see that is because its end cap is missing. So the stored energy in it, when it's void of an end cap, is actually exceeding a message from the opposite end being closed. And the opposites do attract. I mean, who needs to go find a car show when you have all these vehicles? Now I've got a front row seat in Cedarburg. You'll see there's chairs lined up across the road the day before a parade. So when I sit myself here, I feel very much like I'm at Cedarburg ahead of the curb. But the show is... I would have told them once before, but then they didn't learn the lesson. He trying to break it off soft before he got the hands on. You know, I like thinking I have leverage because I have long arms. I like thinking I have leverage because I know more about black holes than the average person does. But then it's those who use the leverage differently, thinking like the bells and whistles where you can have like a clone of a dog, be it like 10 feet in red. That's Clifford the Big Red Dog. And then there's like the ox that we were talking about earlier, Paul Bunyan's ox. These things are actually going to be real in the future when they're cloning more and more. And already there's people who notice that they've become magnetized and they don't know why. And I can't speak on too much of that just because it's too scary. But with more and more, there's like certain sections and arenas where you can go, but then if they don't like you, then you can't go. And then there's different boats where like you're not allowed on the boat if you haven't been accepted, and then that's their leverage. And so it's gonna be bad when you break up the club because it could get physical, if especially they have big red dogs and big blue ox. So when you buy into like the wrong system, you're gonna be able to not understand the full capacity of a maximum capacity. And so the expectancy is gonna be like really slim when it comes to things that you care so much about. And so whenever I find something with low expectancy, it's always like having to do with value and quality. this value of the quarter, it can go up or down, but if it's like defaced and bleached out, it'll be less preferable because people won't want it. So there's a sentimental value, and then there's an actual currency that coin has, and everyone has that, but some people like using that in order to have it easier. Hunter Biden sells art to like people that get access from his dad. So his wife makes some art for like $2 million, and then it's really like a $10 piece of art that you would sell in your local coffee shop. But since Hunter Biden has his like persona where the FBI doesn't look at him for anything suspicious, he's able to make millions of dollars by crap art just because his sentimental value to people wanting power and blackmail over the presidency, who controls what we can say or vote, because he said if you vote against him, then you ain't black. And just with the whole notion of when you're buying into idolatries, it's going to lead into adultery. You know, you can only skin a cat so many ways. At a distance, I've been seeing people who have like things that are kind of blurry, like a tattoo. And I'm like, if someone is partially blind, they're going to think that you have a leaf coming out of your chest because this person had a leaf tattooed on their chest, but it was like low quality. And so with this, whoever was like destructing this property, this is mine actually, so it's my property. They like were trying to change it. Like Michael Jackson had his skin changed from black to white, and then this thing, you can also like bleach a different part of your body, but then whoever was like bleaching this, like they kind of messed up. So this is not a penny, it's a quarter. So if you can have the like easiest logic where like even a toddler can look at a graph and see it skyrocket up from zero, that sort of logic to do stuff of math and quantum mechanics and traveling into space, it would be a joke. That why couldn't you, if a toddler could point at it and understand the difference? But it's finding the middle ground of the stuff that takes all the hardcore fanatics having their own community where it's more sharing, like share and tell. So they're not gonna like breaking up the bunch. Appleton, one of the best places in the world where you can get an apple. Is that true or not? Who knows? But the apple is the one fruit that is best represented of the United States. There's Johnny Appleseed, a long tail, a long tall tail. One long tall tail was Paul Bunyan and his ox. He has a blue ox, a giant ox, equivalent to one massive laundry machine, where it would probably be like his heartbeat. Instead of like rotating in barrel rolls, if it was pumping, getting bigger and smaller, that would be about the size of the blue ox of Paul Bunyan's heart. Pretty interesting, because in order to sustain that body with muscular, that of like a 11-foot ox, you would need a heart probably the size of this room that I'm in. Let's get a better picture. This paint's done really nice. I like how it matches the road. And when stuff is not labeling, you can just have it do matching. And I love seeing like colors when they match, like people in the same room who have the same shirt on. Color shirt, I always take a note of that. And then people's hair color, I always notice when it gets colored. Yo, I'm gonna do some interesting movements and I might get hurt, and I got an audience member And this is probably his gate, so I'll get yelled at, so it'll be funny, but the camera might cut before any of it. Not a good idea. This is definitely not a good idea. Yeah, that was his gate, and I was touching his gate, and that was not a good idea. Even though it was on the outside of the gate, he owns both sides of the gate. Inducting a reason should not be battering a battering ram into a lunatic. That's not how you deduce reasoning. Behind me is a washer machine shop, and if you combine all the washer machines together and then welded them and cut them, you could have one giant washer machine spinning at hundreds of miles per hour doing barrel rolls. USA is consumer all the way. And certain things are just...
Turn left on Appleton Avenue, then turn left.
See, the ones that are
turn left.
2D are flat underneath the glue, but the real ones have the wings that protrude. All the best things in life come at a price, but it's very easy to get shortchanged and not even know how that happened. Getting labels on everything, you would be called a hypochondriac or ADD. If you want to label anything, it should be more interesting through symmetries of diamonds and gold, just because they look nice. When you feel fatigue, I think that it's like a nerve ending where you found its back end and you keep splitting it to try and gain more energy, but it's just not there because it's already been pushed to its extended ends. I think there's better ways of doing stuff, and I think if you have like a garden and it's got all this stuff in it, you can get it extracted and then use that for a better force. Almost as if you were calibrating your car and the tie rods and lug nuts. You could have a car get fixed with just those two things. Would be a maximum rate of expulsion, and define how you can just add fillers to your concentrates of your garden. And you can have a garden for like 5 years on a yield of just like a tiny 5x5 square, and then a car fixed for like 8 years by yourself, just tightening the lug nuts and unthreading a tie rod. So the muscles in your body are like tendons, and there's like a big one above your hip bone, and if you pull on it, it's kind of like a tie rod if it's tie rod's coming on threshed inside of your car. Our units per measure hasn't been set within our body. We can have like a parcel, but the parts of the unit can be tied up with tension. Just like a tie rod in your car, the threading of it can get thrashed because nothing's dealt with properly within your body. Take a mouse or a cockroach, for example. They need less care for, and they don't even have to take showers.